Starting off today with gingerbread latte stout from Good Neighbor Brewing in Winnipeg. They call it a little holiday season pick-me-up, a stout cold steeped with fresh ground coffee from Little Sister Coffee Roasters, topped with gingerbread spice mix, vanilla, and milk sugar. Ooh, a beer with caffeine. This should be interesting. Yeah, that's an unexpected combination of flavors. So today I am going to be tinkering around with a project that was inspired by something that I saw when I was downtown in a park a while ago. I found these strings of lights overhead, just the way they were operating. They were clearly addressable, they were clearly RGB, and they looked to me like they were in a ping pong ball format. I looked closer and I was able to get a brand name off one of the pieces of hardware that was part of the system. And with that, I was able to actually look them up on their website. So here's what those things are. They call themselves trick lights. And yeah, they look like that. 16-bit RGB. They seem to make them in either RGB or RGBW. 16-bit color. Is that sounding familiar yet? The LED inside it is an SMD 5050 LED. Pretty likely to be WS2812 LED inside this. And the diameter of the ball is 42 millimeters, which sounds suspiciously like a ping pong ball, doesn't it? Yeah, 40 millimeters exactly is a ping pong ball. So that is what I am going to use to try and replicate this. And of course, some 5050 LEDs, WS2812. 5050 means basically they are 5.0 millimeters on each side. I've got these ones that are on these little backer boards. I think that is what I'm going to use. So I headed off to Freakhead and made myself up a little core thing here with a nut that screws on the end of it. And unfortunately, I didn't design the nut properly, so I had to redesign that. But that looks like it should clamp down onto the ping pong ball. And there's a space there for the LED. And there's a slot down the end for this 3-conductor wire, which is sold for solenoids, but it's 3-conductor wire, so that's what we need. I've got a couple little slots there that I should be able to poke the wires up through here, out, join them up, and back through there, and it should act as a bit of a strain relief, I think. So then I went and reprinted the nut so that it would actually work, and I made some adjustments to make those holes there a little bit easier to get the wire in and out of. It's still not perfectly easy, but it's a lot easier than it was. And I can just do that from both ends, and this now screws on properly. Also, you notice I made the nut a little bit thicker, so it's got a bit more thread engagement. So that works, and that took quite a bit of brain power and figuring out and tutorials on Freakhead, but I've got to this point, so that works pretty well. So I printed a few more of them and poked a hole in a ping pong ball and jammed some wires and LEDs in there, and I'm not proud of the mess that's in here, and it didn't work very well, but if I just hold that in the shade from the lights, I think it works pretty well. I'll show you what's inside this in a second. It's ugly, and I have other ideas, but it definitely works. So here's what's going on in there. I've actually got 2 of these LEDs back to back, and if I can get it out of here, unfortunately, the wires and everything made it so that it kind of jammed up, and it's really awkward to get in and out. So here's what we got. We got the wire coming in the bottom from the controller. Goes to the 3 pads on here, the plus, minus, and DN. And then stripping off there is another set of wires that wrap around the other side to this LED and do the same thing. So this one and this one are in parallel on their inputs. And then the output side of this little board goes back out this way and onto the next light. In case you hadn't seen them, here's what's on the back of that little circuit board with the LED. So you have 5 volts, and those 2 are just in parallel. Data in, ground, and those 2 are in parallel. and then data out from the LED, which carries on to the next one in the string. So after this sort of proof of concept here, this design, this one is this same design here. It works, it's ugly, and I'm not going to get rid of it, but it's not ideal because you really have to jam yourself in there and risk shredding your wiring, which I prefer not to do if I can avoid it. But I think I can get that back in there, and then we'll see if we can do better with this ping pong ball. And I hope so, because I've run out of ping pong balls. If this works, then maybe I'll order a whole bunch of them cheap from China or something like that. So clearly fighting with those wires is not going to be ideal. So I redesigned this thing again with a much bigger open slot in it. I think that'll be strong enough to hold together. I hope so, but we'll have to find out. Now it is time to get busy working on the next version of this. I'll jam that through there, power that guy off just so that it doesn't cause grief. Cut off another piece of this wire here to come in the other end, and let's carry on. I'll just tin up the input side of the parallel LED, the one that's got less solder on it, and tack some short bits of wire onto them. The color code really doesn't matter that much, especially to me because I'm colorblind. And then I will join up those 3 wires with the 3 wires coming into the first bulb, or the first LED from the controller or the previous section. Just twist those together and then quickly solder them together. And once they're soldered together, I can clip them a little bit short and tack them onto here. And hopefully they don't short together. I have to make sure that I get these on the input side. There's the data in, and you can see the arrows going to that direction. Let's tin those guys up. And then, what have we got here? 5 volts goes on that side. Data goes into the middle, and ground goes on this side. I'm not going to say that's the most beautiful work I've ever done, but they're on there and they're not shorting. And we strip the outgoing wires and put them onto the output side of the LED. Exactly the same process. So one thing I need to do is make sure that I have the wires lined up in parallel, not twisted or anything. So the red wire on that side and the red wire on this side line up with the positive on there, just because I don't have that much room inside and I don't really want to have any more knot of cable inside there than is absolutely necessary. I think that's a little bit neater than the first bunch. Cool, let's see if it actually works. I think I will shove that guy through to the other side. And hopefully, oof, why is that going that way? This is still going to be a challenge to get all these wires massaged in the direction that I want them to be. That needs to spin around that way. Yeah. This wire management part is the hardest part of the whole thing. Oh shit. Well, I was worried about that when I made this a little bit thinner. That's only a couple of perimeters on the print there. So, do I unsolder all that work? Nah. I'm going to make use of that resin glue that I got in the last mail bag. Let's see if I can glue this thing back together. I'll use one of these micro brushes to dot just little bits and pieces of the resin on there. And we'll see what happens. Okay, that's been long enough. Hopefully that holds. So now, just a matter of putting the ping pong ball on. And actually, the hardest part about dealing with the ping pong ball is cutting the hole. But I made this little jig with holes that are the right size clearance for my center fixtures. So I'll just make myself approximate circles there, and I'll cut it out a little bit bigger than that, and hopefully that should work. I guess it shouldn't come as any real big surprise, but ping pong balls are kind of tough to carve into, since they're designed to take a beating during their normal working life. That shouldn't surprise anybody. Sure, there's a better way of doing this. I don't know what it is. Let me know down below if you have any ideas for cutting a hole that size. What is that? 15, about 15 millimeters into a ping pong ball without mangling it or going too far off course or slicing your fingers apart. That's ugly. Fortunately, it will be hidden. They're done, and the holes are pretty close to the same size. But more importantly, and the point of this jig is not so much to make the circles round as to make them directly opposite from each other. So that fits pretty well into there, and yeah, that will work. And unless you're looking really closely, you can't even see the problems. Cool. So let's get that onto here, hopefully without shredding my wiring too badly. That side slipped right over. That's good. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay, so this design with the split open is much better for getting the wires out of your way and keeping everything intact. There we go. I'll just dim down some of the lights and power this on, and hey, looky, it works. I need even more shade here, especially in dimmer lighting if you're looking from a bit of a distance. And in the dark, I mean, okay, yeah, I use different wire, but I think that's pretty cool. So I suppose my next step is to order up a whole bunch of cheap ping pong balls. If I can find ones without logos on them, that would be especially nice. And get busy doing a bit more 3D printing, or a bit more designing, actually. And I have actually gone ahead and reprinted this design here on my resin printer, and it's come out pretty solid, but I suspect it probably has that same weakness right in there. Not quite sure what to do about this design to eliminate that. Maybe put a rib down the outside of it all the way along. As long as it stays inside the threads, it's probably going to be strong enough. I don't know. But yeah, until I get more ping pong balls, that's it for today, I guess. Thanks for hanging out with me on this rambling, weird little project. It was kind of fun to do, and yeah, if you got any comments, questions, suggestions, if you've done something like this, or if you have any other ideas I could implement, feel free to leave it down below. I may revisit this in future on video, or I may just carry on when the ping pong balls show up and do it on my own, because you've seen the ugliness is hiding inside there already. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will talk to you later.